Hello and welcome to another episode of Choose to Challenge. I'm Luana Bradford, and we are here with my co-host, none other than the amazing Constance Wills, aka Connie with Beauty Beyond the Walls. And today she is going to take a different posture. So rather than us doing a co-host, she's going to be in the hot seat. It's interview time, Connie.
Yes, here we go. And you know what? I remember the first time I was on Choose to Challenge, I was in the same seat. So let's do this again. Let's do it.
Well, today we're going to be talking about fear. And the topic is don't let fear shape your identity. And I know some of you may be scratching your head. How can fear shape my identity? Well, Connie's going to share some stories with us. And she's going to talk about her aha moment, what made her realize that she was entrapped in this web of fear and what she did to break free of it. We'll be back in just a moment with Don't Let Fear Shape Your Identity. All right. Well, we're just going to jump right into this because I know I'm curious. We had a conversation earlier this week and we were just talking in general, and you actually used this term. You said, I realized that fear shaped my identity. And I often talk about that I believe there are three faces of fear. And the one is where we are petrified. We're frozen. We just can't move. The other is we're in a state of denial. We put our head in the sand. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. And hopefully it'll just go away. And the third, I feel we run around frenetically like the Chicken Little. I call it the CLS syndrome. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. And in all three, and we may bounce back and forth in all three, we can never move forward, right? We're just in this state of angst and stress and just mental anxiety. And I just want to ask you if you could just share a little bit of your journey in, number one, when did you feel that you were well in how you were handling life? And when did you realize, wait a minute, I think I'm really being controlled and regulated by fear?
You know, Luana, and I'm listening to your the three faces of fear that you recognize, and I can recognize all of those in me at different times. But you know what? I really thought I was okay throughout my career, throughout my life in general. I thought I was okay. I named fear. One of the names I gave fear was being shy. And I used that, and I even used that very recently, but I used that to cover the fact that I was actually afraid to do things. It wasn't that I was so shy. So I think throughout my whole life, my whole career, which spanned almost 34 years, I was living in a state of fear and I was unaware. And when we're unaware of something, we really can't change it, right? Unawareness is not something, being unaware is not something we can focus on because we can't change it. We don't know it's there. I didn't really know it was there. When I started working actually on myself, and when Beauty Beyond the Wall came forth, I talked about that wall being limiting beliefs. And I talked about fear being the mortar that held it together. Still had not come to the aha moment even at that point. I came to this aha moment very recently as I was working on something, a big project that I'm doing later this year. And I was working on it and I was struggling with it. And it just came to me. This is fear that is even keeping you in this spot, unable to, sort of like you said, that one moment where you're just sort of stuck, you can't move forward. That fear sort of kept me there. So that's sort of my aha moment was when I was working, and we talked about it Sunday, when I was working on this project. And I was like, why can't I get out of my head for this? I can do other things. Why can't I? It was fear. And that aha moment led me to think back on how fear has defined who I am, my identity, how it
Let
had
me let me ask
defined.
you one question there. So you mentioned this thing this that you're preparing for, and you realized that you were frozen, and you recognized it as fear. What is it about this that made you feel fearful? Was it something new? Was it the environment? What did you find? Like you said, you were in your head. So if you don't
Yes.
mind, help us to unpackage. What does that
Yes.
really mean?
So in this environment, I felt small. I felt less than. I felt like the other people were already more prepared than I was. I felt like I was among giants and I was the small one. I was the little miniature person and these were giants. And honestly, I felt that in real time. I felt that, what am I doing here? There were times that I questioned myself, why did you do this? What's in the world? Because I felt small, like I felt like I could not compete. And it shouldn't even be something in my mind, competing, because this is not a competition. But I felt like what I was going to do would not be on par with what they're doing. So that was part of it.
What you're saying is huge, and I think there's many times when individuals may feel this. You go into a new environment. It could be even a new job, right? Where you're walking in and you've got the expertise, you landed the job, so obviously you qualify. But then it may be that first briefing, and you've never been in front of the board or in front of the executives or your team, and suddenly you pull back and you don't just step into who you are with that confidence. So I want to, if you don't mind, I want to just kind of dig a little bit deeper here. You use some interesting words. You said you felt small, you felt less than, and then you said you felt like you were standing among giants. And then you said, then you use the word, like felt like you had to compete. Now, knowing all that I know about you and all of your accomplishments in your life, why would you feel small?
I had to ask myself that same question, Luana, because of even what I teach is so opposite of that. And I said, why in the world am I feeling small? And that is during that moment, that time is when I realized it was a lingering fear of not being enough that had followed me through life. It was trailing me, and I realized that was there and I had not totally named it. I hadn't named it. I hadn't called it out. I think it's important for us to name things and to call them out in our lives so they know that we know they're there and we are going to work to change that. So I had to name it. That was really probably why I felt that way. I hadn't named it yet. I hadn't named it. I felt that way in many other instances in my life. But to now that, like you said, I've been doing things have, and I wouldn't be in this space if I wasn't qualified to be in this space. Why did that creep up still?
Right.
I had not ever named that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that sometimes we think because we are in a place of teaching, coaching, guiding, mentoring other people, that okay, it's like I've been there, done there, got the t-shirt, and I've overcome. But there's some things, especially if they've been with us a very long time, it's the continuous process of recognizing, finding ways to quickly shift, right? Because those little demons always want to tap us on our shoulder and say, "Hey, remember me," right?
Yes. And that's what that one just creeped in there, and I didn't even realize it because for weeks I had been thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. How am I going to do this? How am I going to compete with these people? How am I going to sound as polished as they do? That's where I was at. And I didn't realize that that was fear speaking to me because fear was saying, you're not as good as them. You might not have the letters before or after your name that they have. You are not as good as them. You're not speaking out during these training classes like they're doing. You are not. Fear had told me that. So here I am working on the project and I'm still thinking all of this stuff. This stuff is still sitting on me, this fear, and I just have to call it out. It was fear. but now I know who it is. So now I can change it. I can shift, as Luana just said, I can shift it into power. And power doesn't mean that fear doesn't exist,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And now I want to get back to, the title of this, where it's "Don't Let Fear Shape Your Identity." And you had said in our conversation, you realized it wasn't just this incident, but the numerous ones that have compounded over the years, that you said fear shaped your identity. So who is Connie because of the fear? And how,
Connie,
and let me ask you in another way also, and how is Connie now changing or shifting because you recognize that fear?
yeah, who was Connie, or who is Connie because of the fear? Connie is still a powerful, confident, authentic, vulnerable woman, but she wasn't that before she started realizing that the fear is taking place. You know what I called the fear before? And I still believe this. I think I was calling it limiting beliefs, which are guided by fear. I think limiting beliefs are held in place by fear, but I don't believe the limiting belief is the fear. I think the fear is what surrounds it. So Constance had a lot of limiting beliefs in her life that were guided by the fear that in turn held those beliefs in place. So that's who Constance was when she started coming beyond that wall. She's becoming who she is now. So Constance is still becoming this powerful, strong, authentic, vulnerable, soft, whatever kind of, all the good adjectives, right? All those good, where she's still becoming that woman. But there are still those parts that might be framed by fear. And I'm not ashamed to say, yes, that fear led me to that decision. Even just recently, let me tell a quick story. My sister and I, we share a home. And so somebody had come over the house. Somebody was on their way over the house, right? And we had just gotten home from a busy day, and this person that was coming over was not supposed to be coming over. So we just got it. It immediately became this fear, like, oh my God, what are we gonna? Oh my, we're not ready. Oh, we don't want to do. We don't do this tonight. So instead of us coming home from this long day, putting our stuff down and relaxing in our home, do you know what we did? We jumped in the vehicle and drove away from our home. We got about 5 minutes away, and we looked at each other like, what are you doing? What are we doing? And we turned that car around. We came right back and we parked it, and we came back in the house, and we did what we needed to do. And we did not entertain a visitor that night because we weren't prepared to do that night. But that was a quick example of what fear, I think. I'm not sure what example that one would be in your 3 stages of fear, Luana, but that was this, we got to get out of here. We got to run.
Well, yeah, I would call that the CLS. I mean, you went into a state of that's sheer panic.
Yes.
And so you start to spiral.
Exactly. And it makes no common sense, right?
No,
But
no,
that
it
fear
doesn't.
did that. Another example that we were talking about, Luana, earlier this week, I told you that people would always ask me, why haven't you moved? Why haven't you, even I went to school here. I've been here a long time in Tucson, Arizona. Why haven't you moved, or why haven't you done this? Do you know, I always had an excuse. Well, my career's here. My family's here. My daughter's here. My grandchildren are here. My parents are here. I would always have an excuse. Little did I know that those excuses, those reasons were shrouded in fear. Because in reality, I was afraid to move, afraid to start fresh, afraid to start over because I thought I couldn't make it somewhere else.
So
Truth.
let's keep going down this rabbit hole. So you came up with all of these excuses as to why it was important for you to stay in Tucson. And often we'll do that, and it's justifiable, right? It's we are being the responsible party, as you mentioned, for your parents, for your children, your grandchildren, for your daughter. You're being there. You're being this support that they need. But then you said, but you were fearful of stepping out. So now I want to again unpeel this onion. Why? Why was there a fear? Why was there a fear to step beyond the borders of Tucson? And if you can think back on your earliest of memories where you felt this type of feeling.
There was a fear, and that hit the spot right there. There was the fear to step beyond the borders of Constance. I can remember all the way back to, I probably can remember even before kindergarten, but I'll bring it to first grade when we got here in Tucson. I can remember being afraid to go to school. Now, that's normal for most kids to be a little bit afraid, initially, right? Clinging to mom, sister, whoever takes you to class. But for it to continue and for you to not get sleep the night before because you're nervous about going to school the next day, that's fear. So I can remember that. I can remember in school being afraid to join games, being afraid to join groups. And that's some of my earlier memories. Even at church, being afraid to deal with people there, being just hiding behind my mother, being afraid to step out and get a new friend and play with a new friend, being afraid to do that. That carried with me through life. And I found myself in middle school, in high school, in college, being afraid to reach out, being afraid to do things, being afraid to get involved with clubs, with things like that. Even me, I was afraid to drive a car when I was 18. I was not that teenager that wanted to drive right away. I wasn't that kid that was, I got to drive, I'm old enough. I was afraid to do that. And it was not rational. When I think back about it, it wasn't rational. But my life had been so shrouded in being afraid to do things till it was normal. And I'll bring it forward several years in my career. I could have been, managers, supervisors, things like that, because I had the skill set. But what kept me from doing that is the fear. The fear kept me from moving forward. The fear kept me from speaking out in meetings, speaking out in sessions where we're allowed to speak out at. There was always that person that spoke out, and we'd always look at that person, but they were asking the very question we wanted to ask. But I was always afraid to do that. I felt like it just shrouded me. And, the more I think back about things that I did or didn't do because of fear, I see how it wrapped me, almost like picture a mummy being wrapped, being shrouded. That's how I felt, so constricted. And amazingly enough, just because I'm naming it, I feel freer. Just because I'm naming it. And I'm making choices now, and this is very recent, when I feel that coming on, when I feel that shroud of fear about a decision or something I'm making a conscious choice to not have that fear, to not have that, to just change it, to do something different. In other words, do something different. That's what I'm doing now. So I believe that a lot of us feel that way sometimes, but I don't know how many of us want to dig deep, because it's not pleasant all the time to think about why we made these choices.
So now at this point in your life, because that's a lot of time that you've lived, as you said, enshrouded in this fear and so now what? Now that this has been uncovered, discovered, and as you mentioned, it shaped your identity. How far removed are you from that person? As you said, a lot of this is recent, and is all who you became because of the fear a bad thing?
I'm going to say, first of all, it's definitely not a bad thing who I've become because of that, because I've still been able to do things and push through and get things done, sometimes with a lot of prodding and pushing and coercing and coaxing. But I've been able to get through and do a lot of fabulous things in life, right? Fabulous things. But I feel like had I not had that shroud of fear, I could have been farther. However, I don't look on that as a negative thing because we are here to live and learn and change and move. And if we can't pivot, even after we find something out that, oh man, I wish I'd have known that 20 years ago. But if we can't pivot at this point in life and basically transcend time and do what we're supposed to do and get to where we're supposed to get and believe that we can, then we may as well not even be talking about bettering ourselves. But I feel like now that I know what it is, and it's been a recent discovery that I really known what it really was this whole time, I have now been shifting my inner self-talk, my inner thoughts, shifting when those feelings come around, shifting when those thoughts come up, and shifting to a more powerful place. And I know this is a daily thing. It's a daily theme. It's a mindset renewal daily. It goes right back to mindset. And I talk about mindset all the time. This ties right in. It's closely, it's just there. This goes back to my mindset, and it goes back to being aware of it. I think the awareness wasn't quite there. I was aware of some of it, right? Because I did things, I shifted, I moved, I made things happen in my life. I started a new business, things I was aware that, okay, you got to go ahead and push through. But I wasn't aware how deep that fear was sitting in between those bricks, how deep that mortar was. I wasn't aware how far it went back. So that, I think, is part of who I'm becoming. And now that I'm aware of who I was, I think I will become the person I'm supposed to be even more powerfully and more purposefully.
If you were to right now paint a picture of your future self with the current knowledge, what does Connie look like? What is Connie doing 2 years from now, 5 years from now?
Connie is the business Beauty Beyond the Wall is definitely has grown. It has blown up. I always call Beauty Beyond the Wall a movement. It has now become a movement. Connie is not afraid to take chances. She's not afraid to step out and do things that she hasn't done before, because she knows that if you mess up, you mess up. You start again, you try again. She's not afraid of what people say. She's not afraid of being indecisive sometimes. Even sometimes we are indecisive. She's not afraid of that. She's not afraid to step into the ring with other people that she viewed as giants. And she is living in that. She's living in her truth. She's living in her authenticity. And she's living in the fact that, yes, I know sometimes fear can somewhat motivate us, some sorts of it. So she's living in that because she knows that might be in the background still. It might still be there trying to creep up over her shoulder, but she also knows who she is, and she knows who fear is. Now she has put a name and an identity to that fear, so she can keep moving into what the plans that God has for her. And Constance knows those plans are great. And Constance just might get up and move from Tucson, Arizona, even at this age and stage in life. And she will be okay if she does that.
I love that. You mentioned here not afraid to take chances, and sometimes we can get so caught up in how things have always been, right? It becomes those comfortable slippers, and we don't want any new ones. We find a way to keep those bunny slippers forever and ever. But we find that we make greater impact when we're like that rubber band, and we're stretched because we can never go back to that original shape, right? And with this, what I'm hearing is, as you're growing, as you're becoming, that this just opened up another door. Your lens is a little bit more refined in understanding the what that is behind all of this. What's really I guess, comprising this mortar. Like you said, you didn't realize how deep, how thick it was. And many people are like that. And we live in a world of excuses. We justify why things are, it's always been this way, or this is, my mom was this way, I'm this way. Or we play small and we end up being wallflowers in our own lives. And I remember hearing Les Brown years and years ago. He said one of the saddest things is when you visit a graveyard. And he said, because there is not just individuals we love who are no longer with us, but dreams never fulfilled, songs never sung, books never written. And we have to get out and learn how to get out of our own way and allow the genius, the divinity within us to lead, to guide. Wendy Watkins often talks about being able to position yourself in such an authentic way that you live a delicious life. She said life should always be delicious. So when we think about you, Connie, and living that delicious life, what's one thing on your bucket list that you'd like to do?
One thing on my bucket list that I'd love to do, that I'm going to, I'd say love to, but like to, going to, is just take a trip to England, where I was born. I would love to do it with my family or somebody I know, but at this point, I want to do it even solo. And I really think that now that I'm talking about it, I think I want to take a solo trip there as well. I think I need to take a solo trip to see where I came into this planet, to see where I made my entrance. And I think that will be very, very spiritually uplifting to me when I do that.
I love that. Sometimes you're right. It can be very cathartic. You're going on this journey, this pilgrimage, and you never know what you're going to uncover, discover that's meant strictly for you, right? Because when you have other people with you, you do have to consider that. But those pilgrimages can be an eye-opening moment. And when you were talking about that, I thought last year when I went to my father's birthplace after he passed, and I'd been there before, but never by myself. And it was so different, and it was so healing for me in ways that I didn't even know I needed healing. And I think that's sometimes the beauty of being able to walk in your spiritual aloneness, but you're not alone because God's with you. But that's where I think you're more sensitive and tuned to where the Spirit is leading you and shaping you. And I think that's where those exponential leaps, those quantum leaps in our lives can happen. So like you can go there and then come back and we're like, whoa, who's this new Connie? Because all the baggage is left, right? You've tapped into your roots that you know they're there, but you don't have the memory. At least you don't think you have the memory. But you never know what will be familiar once you go back.
That's beautiful. Can I say one thing, Luana, too? When you just mentioned about, that basically it taps in, it's almost like a spiritual renewal. It taps into your spirit. And I thought about, when you just said that, it just sort of brought some back to my memory. Perfect love casts out fear. And we don't think about that. We say it, we sing it. I was just telling my sister recently, what did that song make you think about when we sing perfect love casts out fear? There is no fear in love. And we talked about what we thought it meant. But do we really know what that really means? Perfect love casts out fear. There is no fear in love. When we are love, even in what we do, even in who we become, fear will be cast out from us. I'm saying this to those who are spiritual and who are not spiritual. I learned this in the church, of course, but it is a truth. Perfect love casts out fear. There is no fear in love. So, how many of us know what perfect love is for us? It may not be the same for everybody, but perfect love casts out fear. The next time that fear creeps up, think about that. Perfect. Am I in love right now?
I love that. We're almost out of time. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back. And I believe you've got a couple teachable moments for us. Yes?
Yes, I got something fun.
Okay. All right. Well, Connie, this has been great. We could definitely unpackage this even more. I really appreciate you being transparent, telling the story. And I think if anyone is listening, and I know you are, you'll notice that again, our journey is always evolving. And you never know when something is going to just spark something in you that causes you to pause, put on one of the faces of fear. And I like that you have the courage to explore. And I just want to encourage everyone before Connie gives us more insight is to don't fear exploring. Because all you're doing is just trying to find out who you are. What are these triggers? Why does it feel comfortable to hide behind the mask instead of just being? And like you said, you recognize the giants. Okay, and I'm one too, right?
Yes. Yes, that's it.
All right. Well, Connie, I'll let you take it away.
So the thing that I've noticed about fear, what I want you to go home with, notice it, name it, challenge it. Those three things. Notice it, name it, challenge it. Become aware that noticing where that fear creeps in, notice it. Name it. It might be, I have a fear of change. I have a fear of whatever it might be. Name it and then challenge it. Do some small act that will help you to move beyond that fear. Do some small act that will help you change your whole ideology around that fear. So we're noticing it first, we're naming it second, and we're challenging it third. Those three things will help us all to move past our deeply embedded fears bit by bit. The ones we don't notice, the ones we don't think are there, take that time. When next time you have that hesitation, sometimes that's not just a hesitation. Sometimes that's a fear of what's beyond whatever you're getting ready to do. Notice it, name it, and challenge it. Luana?
Oh, that's powerful. And those simple steps, notice it, name it, challenge it. However, it requires you to make the decision. You have to first decide to do that. You see it, but now what? Right? So naming it, that can be a little bit challenging. But then, as you said, to challenge it, to rise up and say, no, I see you, but you have no more authority here. Well, this has been great. I hope that this has inspired our listeners on Choose to Challenge. Thank you, Connie, for saying yes and being willing to be interviewed about a topic that's very real, very sensitive. And we want to ensure that women around the world rise up and just be you, be authentic. unapologetically you.
Yes. Thank you so
Well,
much, Luana. This has been great. Just chit-chatting with you about this. I know we're probably going to even talk further, in the future about this, but this was great. And you know what? This right here was a step for me because this was a challenge. I challenged that fear to get on here and be authentic about it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
and if you want to reach out and connect with Connie, you can do so on Facebook, Constance E. Wills. You can direct message her or on beautybeyondthewall.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on Choose the Challenge, reach out to us. We love to talk to you, see how we might find out what you've uncovered and discovered to make you the best you out there so that we can share your success stories with the world. Just email us, but Choose the Challenge in the subject line. A member of our team will reach out to you and we will see how we can get you on this. Gosh, I can't believe we're in second quarter already. But Q2 lineup. All right. Be safe, be well, and we will see you next week. And just remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Bye for now.
Are you ready to defy gravity and challenge the impossible? Meet Luana Bradford, the visionary leader behind Choose to Challenge on E360 TV. Now in its 5th season, this groundbreaking show shines a spotlight on voices of change from across the globe. Born during the pandemic, Choose to Challenge becomes a platform for transformation where no topic is off limits. Every episode highlights individuals breaking barriers, rewriting narratives, and making an impact. Ready to share your story and inspire change? Call 404-618-2824 to become a guest. This is your moment to rise. Tune in now at e360tv.com. Your voice matters. Let's change the world together.